Hey, what's up, guys? This is Favi from Tectonic Takes. Just giving you a quick reminder. This is Baby Leo, too. Quick reminder to like our video, please. It helps out the algorithm to make sure that other Quakes fans see our content as well. And don't forget to subscribe. Maybe press that bell icon as well. Take care, and
what's up, everybody? This is Favi from Tectonic Takes. I'm actually here with someone that you all know, all love. I mean, if you've been a Quakes fan for any time in the last, 10 years, you'll know his name. It's Robert Jonas. What's up? How you doing, Robert? Welcome on.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It's a real pleasure, and really been enjoying the takes so far, and couldn't wait to be a part of it.
Perfect. And I appreciate you coming on, taking the time out of your day. I know you're a really busy person. If someone wants to get a hold of your content, I know everybody probably knows you, but where can they find you at?
Yeah, so right these days, twitter.com, just at Robert Jonas is probably the best way to reach me and kind of read any links to my stories. As we get ready for the MLS season coming up, I'll have hopefully some special announcements soon about where my content will be primarily focused on, but Twitter is a good place to get a hold of me in the meantime.
Perfect. And we'll all start to follow you if we haven't already, because that's for sure. We need to be following Robert Jonas. All right. Well, this is another season preview. I know we've done a lot of these, but we've kind of I've gotten a little crazy on Twitter. I've said a couple of comments where maybe some Quakes fans weren't ready for it. You know, I gave my Tectonic take, but I'm going to give it to you, Robert. So we'll give it to you at the end, and we'll see what you think. It's a bit of a hot take, but I have a couple of questions for you beforehand.
Sure. Of course.
This team on paper, to me, looks like it has more talent than last year. Do you agree with that statement?
I would say that it has more experience in that talent than maybe the last couple of years. Because they've made a few changes. I think Chofis is a really good addition. But there were parts of the contributions from a Danny Houston or a Wando that maybe he's not going to be replacing. Magnus Eriksson, another very important player for the second half of last season. Again, have they replaced them with better players? I think that still remains to be seen. But I think the potential is maybe more for the guys returning to show even better in Mateus Almeida's system. So is the roster better? I think the roster is more prepared. That's what I would say.
Yeah, that's a great way to word it. I mean, Fierro, another year under Almeida's belt, possibly has a bigger ceiling. Someone like Andy Rios, I know, is slumping, but he's had times where he's looked like a pretty good starting caliber striker. So maybe another year under the belt, or maybe a super sub edition makes him have a better season than the prior years. We're probably going to see a lot of Daniel Vega this year, as the game right now going on in USA versus Dominican Republic. Jackson Yule just scored. So another year under Daniel Vega's, caliber with Almeida definitely goes ahead, and he could have a good season. Maybe he has a bounce back season again. So we'll definitely see if that pans out as well. Okay. So where do you feel like we still need improvements on this roster?
It's probably not the first take you've heard, but we know very much so that this Quake team can suffer on set pieces, and they've got some guys who can take the set pieces, but defending them has been, very much to the eye and to the statistical analysis, a really tough part for this club. I was part of a small round table that had the opportunity to talk to Jesse Fiornelli last week, and it came up in the questioning. It was very much a point the GM said, yes, we understand and we know the metrics. We see this as a problem. And it's not just about a change of style, but it could very well mean a true upgrade at center back. Maybe a more physical, ball winner that can get to that ball. I think back to like a Clarence Goodson, a center back who just, the ball seemed to find his head no matter where he was. we have a couple of center backs that are good with the ball at their feet, but if they're able to defend aerially, we haven't seen that on a consistent enough basis to feel confident. I think that's one place where this Quakes team is still quite vulnerable. And then on any restart, no matter how frantic you are, man pressing defensive schemes, whatever you want to call it when the ball's in play, all of that goes out the window when it comes to set pieces, and you got to have the personnel on the field to defend.
Yeah, and if we get a starting center back that can help us on corners, or maybe we get a starting 9 that is, can take any aerial on defense and offense, that would help us drastically. So definitely.
Yeah. It's something, you watch Wando play, Wando just wants to get on the field no matter what.
Yeah.
And, he's, I don't know if he ever had the step to lose the step, which is sort of a Ramiro Corrales joke, but, Wando does get to the ball on set pieces. He's able to be that first defender.
Mm-hmm.
Danny Houston had some of that as well, although we just didn't see him on the field as much.
Right.
I haven't seen that out of an Andy Rios yet. And maybe that's where, another upgrade on the field to a guy again with a good head for the ball is gonna help on those defensive pieces too.
Yeah, exactly. Andy Rios, unfortunately, doesn't really look like he got his head on a lot of corners last year. I know he had I know he had a couple of, I think he had a corner goal with his foot where it like barely tapped his foot and it was like a wonder goal, but definitely needs to get his head on the balls more often so we don't let in any goals on defense and get more goals on offense. All right. What's your starting lineup for 2021?
Starting lineup. I think it's going to be a lot of the returning guys. I think the main changes you're going to see are going to be kind of focused on defense. With Nick Lima, off to Austin. I think there's going to be good competition between Lopez and Tommy Thompson and our new defender. Luciano Abacasis, definitely. He's not brought in to be a bench warmer. He kind of reminds me of a Jordan Stewart when he was brought in at that stage in his career. And he turned out to be very effective over those couple of seasons that he was able to play. You need to see Alanis and Flo in that center defensive partnership, although I have a lot of confidence that Tanner Beeson is going to be a really exceptional backup to both of them. And then you run the midfield. Jackson Ewell and Judson are your go-to starters. But if one goes down or one is out on international duty, scoring goals for say their country like Jackson is, then Eric Hermeti is the guy they're pointing a finger at and saying you're the guy who's going to be able to step in and take that position. So I think he'll be a positive in terms of the center of the midfield. I'd love to see Fierro and Espinosa as the wingers, with Cade being first off the bench for either one of them. And then it's going to be really tough to see if Wando gets to start on opening day or whether the team is starting to make those adjustments. Again, Jesse Fiorinelli is sort of hinting, and Mateus has even spoken about, Chris will get every opportunity when it's there, but that, they're already, they need to start thinking about that next step. So Rios is a starter for sure. I think he plays that kind of two-way position. He's not a super attacking forward, but he understands his role to play some defense. Pair it up with Wando, that would be a pretty good attack. But if you want to get Chofis on the field, then of course then maybe Wando takes to the bench.
Okay, and just thinking about your answer there, if JT, Ewell, and Wando are out of the game, who's the captain, right?
That's a great. It's a very good question. It's a very good question, and it's interesting having been a long-time observer of this team and having the luxury to see them in training for so many years, and having that change in the current situation since the pandemic. Trainings have not been open. You don't get to see how guys communicate and interact. It's tough to say. Guys like Andy Rios are able to talk and have a lot of influence on the team. Alanis is another person who's got some respect, especially in the locker room, who could be that voice. It's a tough one, beyond the obvious names, who would be the next to step up. If Daniel Vega is playing, he
Yeah.
becomes a logical choice for captain. Again,
Right.
you know, kind of a guy who's got the communication throughout the back line and also throughout the team. So it's going to be a curious question who Mateus turns to in those situations, because beyond those three, especially with Jackson being the heir apparent to captain, I think it's a bit wide open for that honor.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's going to be fun to find out, right? So if it's probably going to happen sometime during the season, and Magnus being gone, it really doesn't leave any player in the rite of passage to get that captain armband. All right. So, Robert, what player are you most excited about this season?
Ooh, that's a good question. It might seem like an obvious choice, but Cade Cowell is he's a young man. We'll just say that he's not a boy anymore, but he's not your prototypical 17-year-old. He's a physical wonder. He's got a good and developing soccer IQ. He's a sponge in terms of information. He wants to learn. He's really paying attention to the veterans around him, and he's he's in a good situation right now where you have a Quakes team that has guys that want to see the youngsters succeed. And they're looking after them. I mean, Cade himself said his words. Hey, I get to be a kid. I get to make mistakes. I'm not being kind of bossed around or told what to do. And for such a player with such an upside, that's going to be so important to be able to do so. If there's one thing Mateus has promoted in this team is, go out there and do what you can do. Play soccer, have fun, show the joy. And for a youngster who might be fighting for playing time and hope he doesn't kind of ruin his opportunity, there could be caution in play. And if Cade doesn't have to worry about that, then it'll be really interesting to see what he puts out there. And when he gets his opportunities, I don't see him shying away from really being an attacking focused player, someone who really wants to get out there and get the goals he feels he even should have had last year.
Yeah. And do you see maybe a position change coming up, maybe starting striker on opening day? Is that possible?
Ooh, I think it is. I think there's a lot for him to earn. I think it would be a big kind of boost for him, and one that he seems willing to take. But at the same time, I think he's also understands as a member of a team that he still has to earn that, and it may take some preseason excellence. It may take the consistency in training to do so. His words when we asked him about it a couple of weeks ago about goals for the season was he has to find his finishing touch, and you start your finishing touch in practice. That's something we saw Wando do from day one when he arrived in San Jose. He put hours into his training and just got better and better and better at it. And then when you're just 17, there's only been so many hours you've been training in your life. So he's got that time to still work with. If you were the opening day starter, I wouldn't be shocked. I would be very impressed. I'll just say that, and I would absolutely be intrigued.
Yeah, and like how Andy Rios last year had some crazy goals in preseason, or he had those big goal games during preseason. He was undoubtedly the starter opening day for our team, and that could possibly happen again for Cade Cowell. So we'll see. Time will tell, right?
Absolutely. That's why they got to practice.
Yeah, and if he is the day one starter, maybe we see Barcelona knocking really quickly. So
that's right. There might be a lot more of those number 44 jerseys sold. So
awesome, definitely. Okay. Who will have the biggest bounce back season in your eyes?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I like trying to think about guys who maybe didn't do as much as we thought they would. I don't know. I'm going to take a little bit of a flyer here with Eric Cavillo. He's a guy that from the day I met him, he just impressed me as having found the right place. Coming into the club, coming out of his Cosmos experience, and kind of really flying under the radar in terms of acquisitions. I don't think really anyone made a big fuss about it at the time, but he's very quietly gained the trust of teammates and especially the coaching staff. We're starting to see him get the attention at the international level, which is very exciting for him. And a person who can step into that central midfield role, potentially start pressuring the main starters for minutes and not just be relegated to a bench role. I'd love to see what he could get in more time on the field. He's got really good vision and the ability to kind of play the ball forward and keep his head up, and that's something that you don't teach. You have that and you develop that, and that's something where if he gets his opportunities, call it a bounce back, maybe from just not having opportunities. But I think Cavillo could be the guy.
Yeah, and we're the biggest Eric Cavillo fans because he's been on the podcast twice. So we would love for that to happen. I was watching the game I was watching the game where he came on for El Salvador and played a 45. He looked pretty good on the ball. I know he said on the podcast that one of his biggest weaknesses was turning with the ball, and it looked like he was practicing with that because he looked like a natural playing for El Salvador. Definitely one of the bright spots of that team. And the announcers knew that. I mean, every time they wanted to announce his name, they would say, "Oh, he plays for Matias Almeida." And so he definitely had a swagger with them when he played for El Salvador. And possibly if Jackson Ewell's over at the U.S. men's national team and we have Remedi and Utzon maybe gassed during the game, the first option off the bench is for the center midfield role possibly could be our Cavillo. So we're excited to see this next season.
Definitely. It's still a youngster too. In soccer years, a guy who's potentially going to be hitting his prime playing seasons in these next 2, 3, 4 years. So here's a real good opportunity for him to make that leap.
Yeah, and we're definitely excited for him again. So let's go, Eric. Woo! All right. Where do the Earthquakes land in the standings?
Ooh, somewhere in the Western Conference, I can tell you that. It's a great question, and I think every year I go back and forth in my my optimism versus my pessimism, and it's mainly because the Quakes have kind of gone up and down in the standings from year to year. It's a team that has for better or for worse been a kind of a borderline playoff team. 2012 as a very key exception to that over this last decade. But a team that when things go well and there's consistency, they become a playoff team.
Right.
And when things kind of fall off the tracks a little bit, or they just have unevenness on the field, they become unfortunately a wooden spoon contender.
Yeah.
So this team I still feel is probably somewhere in that zone, probably a contender when things go right. I think the one part of the kind of the setup this year that helps them become a more, I'll say, legitimate playoff contender is that the changes to the roster and the adjustments to who's getting the minutes under Almeida has led to a squad that is you could say pretty much is his squad now.
Yeah.
And if he's able to get the best out of these guys that not only have come in over this offseason and the previous season, but the holdovers that have really established themselves as well, then a second year under Almeida and under his guidance is kind of should prove to be effective. And if it doesn't, then that's we'll learn that out probably pretty quickly, and I'm sure we'll see some low moments. It's just whether this team kind of weathers through those low moments that they can truly kind of manifest that destiny as a playoff team.
Okay, perfect. So do you have them maybe in the 5th place, 6th place?
I don't see them. Yeah, I don't see them. Depending on the playoff format, I don't see them competing for that home game there at the beginning. But there's a lot of games to potentially be played this season. We'll see how it kind of plays out. There's going to be a very condensed schedule, and you're going to be missing a couple of guys like Jackson for potentially quite a few of those games. A guy who's become their captain. But they've got some notable bench players. That's been one of their strategies to make sure that it's not an 11 and then some other guys, but rather you've got a deep enough and consistent enough bench. The guys are plugging into positions and not having to create a lot of kind of no necessity to change style or change approach.
Right. Okay, perfect. And this all matters if we play, Seattle Sounders 4 times this year and LAFC 4 times this year. Let me get some Houston Dynamo in there, maybe some Austin.
So where was Nashville when you needed
Right.
So,
or Cincinnati, right? Where was Cincinnati?
Yeah, exactly. Give me 34 Cincinnati games. See what they can do with them. So.
All right. So do you feel the Earthquakes are going to bring in another player before the start of the season?
Ooh. No,
Mm.
I don't know anything to be able to say that directly. It's just a feeling essentially based on the market and based on the realities of what's
Yeah.
going on right now. I think if you're pulling players in from other leagues, especially your, potentially European or even South American leagues, it's about the timing. I think the way the primary and secondary windows work this year, focus the attention on getting guys in July when the secondary window opens, and you've still got about 2/3 of the season left to go. There's still
Yeah.
plenty of time to make a move when you've got, again, a pretty sizable number of teams in the conference making the playoffs.
Mm.
And so there's no reason to rush into anything in the next couple of weeks. Having said that, if one of the deals that Jesse's been trying to work on materializes, he's going to
Yeah.
pull the trigger, no doubt
Yeah.
about it. There's no reason to wait for the summertime. But I think the realities of the market, the pieces moving in other clubs, is going to require time to pass before those moves start to be made.
Okay, perfect. And yeah, I mean, this team on paper does look like a solid playoff team. But if, let's say, we got a solid 9 coming in before the season, then maybe we become a dark horse to win the championship. But for right now, I feel like we would be maybe a second round, third round playoff team. But we're missing that solid 9. But if Cade Cal can be that, right?
Hey, if he steps into it right away, and
right.
we've already seen so much out of him in a year, about a little over a year, so
right.
Why not?
Let's get him some minutes, maybe shop him around, Hey, Daryl Dyke is doing great, so I mean, Cade Cal could maybe be the next one.
Absolutely. No, sometimes that's what you need. You need your opportunity and the trust of teammates, and good things happen to good players when they get that.
Yeah. Okay. So, what's your Tectonic take for the 2021 MLS season?
Great question. I'm going to use a bit of an analogy to set it up, which is that if for anyone out there who's into gardening or growing anything, there's a saying about plants. The first year of a plant, it tends to sleep, and its second year, it tends to creep, and by the third year, it starts to leap. And we've seen the seeds of the Almeida, methodology and philosophy, be planted when he joined this team a couple of years ago. This is season number 3. This is the season where this team needs to leap, and I think that leap is going to happen in a lot of the players that we started to see turn things on last season. Carlos Fierro, for example, Christian Espinosa. We know he's the star of this team. He's their DP. Here's his chance to become the DP at the MLS level, where he gets in those conversations, those potential MVP conversations. So my Tectonic take is, we're going to see a Quake in the conversation for MVP. To me, that could be the Espinosa, and we're going to see some of these dark horses start to compete for those offensive categories. A team that wasn't always able to convert and get the goals they needed last season. I see them scoring some goals this season. I look for a lot of excitement on the offensive side of the field.
And that's exciting. I mean, that's exciting news. I mean,